Hello, parents, and welcome back to Picking Teams. Our guest today is Karl Hedley, the boys soccer director at Gwinnett Soccer Academy here in Atlanta. Karl is someone I'm totally in awe of. He chooses to coach middle school aged boys, which is not only something I'd never choose to do, but I'm also not sure I could handle it even if I had to. Karl has coached both of my boys, and I'm so impressed with his coaching style and demeanor. I'm so pleased he could join us today. When you look back on your upbringing and having a father that was a professional, what were the lessons that you learned from him growing up that you're applying to coaching now?
I think the biggest thing with my dad, I mean, and he did, and it was the quintessential, 70s, early 80s. He really got out of my way. Like my dad coached during my younger years, all the way through my youth, and scouted. So he would do some scouting for Everton and Liverpool locally and stuff. But so I very rarely saw him at games. When I moved over to the States when I was younger, I think that was honestly the first time my mum and dad had seen me play. I mean, dad had seen me play in the park, but never really seen me play. And this story will amaze people, but a white transit van used to pick me up on a corner when I was about 8 or 9 and drive me into Liverpool City Centre to play games. And often I'd get home and my dad would go, "Did you play today? Yeah. Did you score? Did you do all right? Yeah, I did all right." And that began the conversation. So he taught me to love the game, I think, more than anything, be passionate about it, and not by sitting me down and saying, "This is what you need to do," just following him night and day and seeing what he did, standing on the sidelines and listening to him, getting too close to our halftime team talk every now and again and learning some words I didn't know about at the time. But seeing the passion and the understanding that this is serious fun and we're here to do a job and get that job done. Now, when they got off the field and they went out as a group or whatever, you saw a completely different side of it. But the whole point of what I learned, I think, from him and my mum both as well, because they both are still fun-loving people. They're 80 and still go out having a great time, having a party. They love it. But that was the thing. It was enjoying life at the fullest. But from 9 to 5 or over the white line and all that was the work, right? And it was commit yourself to that and go and enjoy the rest of it. Go and enjoy the fruits of it if you get them. And that was the biggest thing. And I was passionate about the game because I was around it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Or it was travel for this, or it was the local club that he had a lot of investment in monetarily and time wise. We were there a lot. I grew up in that club. I was a mascot. I was a ball boy. I played for him. Everything. So you just end up cultivating a passion, not just for the game, but everything that it brings. All the support, the family feeling, the whole 9 yards. The biggest thing for me all the time is, I think what he did for me, the little time that I did get to spend with him down the park kicking a ball, is it was more about falling in love with the ball and then falling in love with the sport, everything around the sport. I think too many times kids get caught up in, especially in this modern day of FIFA and 8-second clips. And, I don't even know where the kids sit down and watch games anymore, to be honest. But it's more about the idea of being a player and not the want to be it. Do you know what I mean? Like, they love the idea of being, like, especially in the lower leagues in England. I love the idea of being, I loved or had the desire to be a player. I wanted to be a player. Didn't do enough to do it, but wanted it. But I didn't necessarily want the flash car and the autograph signing and I would have taken it, don't get me wrong. That wasn't the driving factor. The driving factor was I loved the sport because I fell in love with the ball and then fell in love with the sport. And I think sometimes I feel like we've got it a little bit. I watch some of these things, these academy specials on television, and I hear 7 or 8-year-old boys at Crystal Palace and Arsenal and stuff like that talking about when they make it, they're going to buy mum a house or mum's going to get a new car. And it's not what they're there for. It's not what they should be doing. Fall in love with the ball, fall in love with the game, and then whatever the fruits of your labor are after that, it's all secondary, you know?
That's a great message. I mean, and it really is a process to fall in love with the ball. Like, it takes a lot of work. And I think that's that instant gratification piece that this generation is going to have to continue fighting, really, because of social media and everything else that they see. But it's a process. You can't go from A to Z, you know, just like that. Like, it takes time, it takes work, it takes effort. And it's essential that they love that work along the way, or they'll drop out, they'll get burnt out. They'll, you know, that's the key. So how do we teach them to love the game, or how do we help them as parents? And you're a parent too. How do we help them to, you know, love what they're doing?
Well, I think first and foremost, it has to be organic, right? It has to happen naturally. I don't think you can, like with my daughters, it was always on. If they didn't fall in love with it organically, they weren't going to fall in love with it because it was everywhere. Dad was an avid Liverpool supporter. You know, again, when they were younger, it was one game a day if you were lucky. You know, watch it 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was. So they got up and it was on, or it was, you know, go to England and they were around it in England. So they got their full force of, you know, here it is available to you if you love it. And I think that's the first thing, is when we talk about parents getting out of the way, if they don't love it, don't try and force them to love it. You've got to give them every opportunity to fall in love with it. So my dad would make sure I had a ball always, or, hey, do you want to go to the park? Let's go to the park when I was little. You do those things with them and go kick around, but you force them. I tell parents all the time, they should be driven by them and then driven by you. So if they want to do it, they should be driven to do it. And then you drive them wherever they've asked you to go, right? You physically drive them until they can drive. But they've got to go get the ball out of the closet. That's the summer message every time when people say, what should we be doing over the summer? Should we sign up for this, sign up for that? Put the ball away and see if he goes and gets it out. And if he doesn't, then let him go be a kid for a little bit. They'll fall in love with it if you make it available to them, and they are meant to fall in love with it. You know, that's the bottom line. Or they'll fall in love with something else, and that's all right too. I mean, I love multiple sports, or enjoy multiple sports. I'm not very good at some of them, but I love tennis. I love watching tennis. I'm not very good at it, but I enjoy playing it, and the chances I get to play it, and that's fine. But you'll find a passion with what that one thing, whatever that thing is. You'll find that passion if it's available to you. You're encouraged to work hard, and that's the be all and end all anything you do. You know, I mean, if you're gonna wash the dishes, make them the cleanest you can possibly make them, right? Just be the best at what you can be. But that's the encouragement I think that comes from the parents, is encourage them, and you can push them a little bit to do whatever it is they do to the best of their ability, and make everything available to them, and whatever they fall in love with, they'll fall in love with. I mean, I know your passion is tennis, and I don't think either one of the boys really play, right? I mean, that's
Right.
You know, it doesn't mean because it's your passion, it's certainly not going to be their passion. And then again, the other message to that is, once you've guided them or helped them guide to wherever they want to end up in that sport, then get out of the way. I think the best sport for my kids to get into was one that I had no clue about, because I literally just shut up and had no clue what they were doing, you know, and that's the best way. You can't teach kids or let kids be taught how to do something with your constant information and guidance as they're trying to do it, you know. And I think we all hear it and see it on the sidelines every week, right? Kick it, boot it, run, shoot. Decision making's being yelled by parents as these kids are trying to make these decisions. But yet when we put them in a maths test, we close the door and we don't allow anybody else in there, and they're looking at a maths test and they're solving those problems without anybody giving them information. And that's the key part. Nobody's screaming over the shoulder, you know, that's number 5, make it a 5, make it a 7. Nobody's doing that. They're just letting them get on with it. And that's the key, is that once they find that thing that they're in love with, then get out of their way and just drive them wherever they need to go. It's the downside to being in the States, right? There's no man in a white transit van picking them up. or you can't walk there, or you can't bicycle there. You've got, your parents have to be involved. But You see it with the older boys. They no longer, parents no longer go to practice once they're driving. Some don't even go to games. So that change starts to happen. So let it happen earlier and let them do it organically and get out of their way.
Have you ever seen a parent really destroy a child's future that had a lot of talent and had a lot of passion?
I've seen them destroy passion, and I've seen them damper talent by overwork and over enthusiasm. So pushing them to do perhaps more than they need to do. I think you can push somebody to fall out of love with something, right? You do something and you do something well because it's your passion and you love it and you enjoy it, and left to your own devices and do it. But we all need a break from everything we do. I love coaching. But the minute I get asked to do a winter league or a summer league or whatever, I'm the first to say no. Because if I don't have that downtime and that rest, then I can't, the flame goes out, and eventually I'm not doing the best of my ability all the time. But I think I've seen a good bit of that. I don't think I've seen anybody that you could have stepped back and said, this kid's got a real chance. But I have seen the flame get dampened by over enthusiastic parents living their dream through them, pushing them a little bit too much. Some kids can take it. I mean, there's loads of stories out there, isn't there? The Williams sisters and the Tiger Woodses of the world and all the rest of it, where dad was instrumental in being that driving force. Some people can take it, but a lot can't. And I think that the key is that if you're driving them in the right way, it's fine, but you can dampen that love for it. And if it turns into a job, well, I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but most people don't like their job, right? There's more people don't like their job than like their job. The only time you like it is when it's not really a job; it's something you enjoy doing.
Right.
So the key then, obviously, is to let them enjoy what they're doing. But yeah, you see it. You do see it. I see kids. You look at them and you think you don't really want to be here. But 9 times out of 10, those kids drop off and become second or third team players when they're older, or stop playing.
Yeah.
I tell 13-year-old ECNL boys all the time, and I love it when the older kids are over on the field or two over. You look over and there's the 07s or there's the 08s, and I can say, that kid played for me at U13. Well, where's the rest of them? Well, that's a good question, right? Where are the rest of them? 1 or 2 at Atlanta United, 1 or 2 abroad. The rest of them not playing anymore, or they're playing on a second team or a third team. And how does that happen? Either they weren't good enough, weren't athletic enough, weren't strong enough, weren't quick enough, or in some circumstances, mum and dad helped put the flame out.
Yeah. It's so sad to watch, because even for me as a college coach for as long as I was, I could always see the student athletes that would have had so much more success had their parents just gotten out of their way. So frustrating. So I like to ask these questions because I think that parents and their self-awareness is not always present, to put it bluntly. So what is the craziest conversation you've had with a parent about a player? Like the most ridiculous conversation. I ask this because it's like, as a parent, sometimes you're like, oh, I would never do that. I never push my kid too hard. I would never put the flame out in it. And then you hear the story and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I've done that. So yeah, what is it?
I think I've heard them all. I think that I have to be careful because some of them are still playing. So, and some of
no
these
names
I see on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I love I've literally probably got 100 different ones that would, if I could pull them to mind, would not blow your mind, because I'm sure you've heard them too. But the ones I always love are the ones that is like, we do personal training, we do private training, we do this, we do that. He does speed and agility on a Friday night. He does this, does the other. We train him in our backyard, and we don't allow them back in the house until they're crying and they're sweating. And I mean, this is typical. It is typical. And you think to yourself, what are you doing? Like, why would you treat a child like this? Like, and try and push them to a point of a breaking point, really. And I think that you hear enough crazy stories. I mean, the amount of kids being dragged abroad at 12 and 13 years of age, and signing up for a team or not following through with a commitment on and bailing halfway through a year because he's not getting playing time, or club hopping constantly because the coach wasn't doing this and he wasn't doing that. I don't think there's any one particular standout. I mean, there probably is if I really, really thought about it. I'm sure there is. But the collective of, again, just making decisions for these kids that you just need to leave it alone. Like, just leave them alone and let them make these mistakes and let them deal with this adversity. I could there's some games that I watch, like the 2006s play or the 2007s or 8s, and we play against some of these other local teams. And I could almost sometimes get a group of 10 or 11 players together from the other clubs that we play against. It's like, well, what did you get over there? Well, now I'm playing in ECNL. Well, big deal. You weren't even the best player over here, and you've gone searching for something else, and it's the same with the kids that end up at St. Louis or Nashville or Florida somewhere, searching for whatever because they didn't make Atlanta United. The lads at Barcelona Academy or PSG Academy, where they're paying 30, 40 grand a year or whatever it is to be part of this, subsidiary of Atlanta, of Barcelona or whatever. And what are you searching for? Like, conquer your environment. I mean, you'll see it with the lads that we've sent to Atlanta United. Most of them, not all of them, because there are one or two that go that you think, that's not. But we have a good enough relationship between them and us, and we speak to the scouts on a weekly basis, where most of the time they take what we tell them as being true, and that those kids going have just outgrown our environment, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll be the first to tell a parent I wouldn't take him. But if they've outgrown our environment, they need to be in an environment where they're being pushed by their peers. Because let's be honest, as much as I love all the coaches at Atlanta United, they're no different than they are at all the other clubs. They're similar licensing, similar histories, some less so, some more so. The message is the same, the idea is the same, philosophy is the same, but the environment is different. I don't always agree with the pretty brand new turf and giving them boots and all that, but that, again, the story. But the environment of being around better players and being pushed by that dog eat dog, I want your spot, that's just what they need at that moment. And by the way, a lot go in and they don't need it and they have to come right back out again.
Right.
But that's the next point of it, is let them outgrow their environment before you move them on. Not the other way around. He slipped and he's going to make a second team next year. Well, let me take him over to the club 20 minutes down the road to make sure he's playing on the top team.
Right.
It's the same example you just gave with Atlanta United's not going well. Let's move over to another club where their catchment area is not as good, where they'll love you. You're still not going to go pro. There's only 1% of the kids in the academy at Atlanta United going to go pro. So if you go somewhere else, you're not helping yourself,
Right.
So I think that's the biggest thing, is just let them outgrow their environment before you think about pushing them on to the next.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So to end on a more positive note, because I have been poking for some more controversial answers. What's your fondest coaching memory? When have you had like an amazing experience or funniest? Give me some.
There's lots of funny ones, as you can imagine. Some of them not repeatable on this podcast, but I think, and this is going to sound extremely cheesy, but I've had teams that have done well and won the league, gone on to nationals, done well. Done teams that have done not so well. Of 2006s, won Jefferson Cup, top flight, which was fantastic. Disney tournament back in the day when Disney was massive with the 2005s, was a good experience. As cheesy as this sounds, my fondest coaching memory was the 2006s. We're down in Miramar Beach, Miami. And this was when ECNL, back in the day, that's how far we had to travel. We used to have to fly into Tampa, play against Tampa Bay United, and then rent a car, drive down to Miami, play that, and fly back late on a Sunday night. And the 2006s were playing against Miramar. They were bottom, we were top, and they put us on 120-yard pitch, U13s running up and down 120 yards, extended football field. There was birds on the field that we had to move off to begin the game. The benches weren't set up right, no tents. It was just everything that the league tells you to do, they didn't do. And then in the corner of the field, we had a group of probably about 10 or 15 parents screaming at the boys, swearing at them, telling them they were going to hurt them and do things to. It was horrible. It was a horrible environment. The game was so bad because the pitch was so big. We'd go down one end for 10 minutes, then it'd go down the other end for 10 minutes. We won 1-0. They were booing, they were shouting, they were pointing. Parents told me afterwards what some of the things they were saying was just horrendous. And in all that adversity that they were dealing with, their team walked off and left their bench and our bench, obviously from our stuff, from the game before as well. So believe it or not, U19s played on the same pitch before us. That's how big it was. Left the whole place a wreck. Water bottles everywhere, trash just left behind. Trash can was tipped over. So I'd started to walk towards the parents, and I turned around. While they're getting booed and shouted at, all our 2006 boys were tidying up our bench and their bench.
Wow.
And then as they tidied up, then they walked straight through the middle of those parents that were still over there doing. And to see the look on the parents' faces, that those young 12 and 13-year-old boys had been bigger human beings. I think, honestly, it is still probably to this day my proudest moment, because I thought to myself, if I don't teach you anything else, that's what you've done. That's what you've accomplished, is you've been able to, in all this going on, you've been able to deal with that and then still realize we can't leave this place like that. But then go over and do their bench as well was huge. So that was a massive moment. And like I said, with all the other stuff, there's been great failures and great successes. And I love the boys that go on to Atlanta United and do well. And the lads that are now knocking around first teams in different countries as well, here and there. But for the most part, those little things that know at the end of it, hopefully you're creating good human beings, you know?
I love that. It's a great way to end. Thanks so much for being here, Karl. It was great to have you, and you shared so many excellent insights. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to Picking Teams, a playbook for parents. Be sure to send us your feedback by clicking the link in the show notes below.